Welcome to the 30-Year-Old Virgin podcast, where we discuss all things sex, love, and relationships. I'm your host and your favorite late bloomer, Allison Cadena. And on today's episode, we try to cover a wide range of topics, kind of for everybody. But this is very specifically for my late bloomer brethren, because we're going to talk about the very heavy, loaded subject of virginity and first sexual experiences. So to do this, I'm bringing back one of our guests. If you haven't seen him before, you're not a real one, you're not a day one. But we have with us the always funny comedian and fellow late bloomer, Sachin.
Hi. It's nice to be here again. Spilling all our shit out to the public.
Telling all our business,
Yes.
no big deal.
Yeah, I don't care. I'm an open book. I'm very open about certain things. If it's funny, I'll talk about it. If it's not, then why? If it's funny and interesting, then that's for everyone to consume.
Love it. And I really love that we found out that you were a late bloomer in the Guys Talk episode, which I did not know going into it. And this is a topic that I always wanted to cover, and it's really hard to find people who are so open, which I think is one of the reasons why I really started the podcast, is so that, let's just talk about it. I think these conversations are obviously happening for people, and
They are. Yeah.
they're just hush, hush, whisper,
I know. I didn't really this is something that's surprising to me. Our image, living in India, our image of America is just American Pie. We just think everyone's just fucking once they start. Once they're 18, they go to college to fuck, and that's what I was told. Even you go to college to have sex. That's why That's why people have debt. It's just the debt of getting laid, which is why
you're paying for sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
I know, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Most people can't do rock and roll, so they'll settle for sex and drugs because you don't need talent for both, right? For rock and roll, you need to put in effort, but for everything else, you just I wanted to hook up with someone. I couldn't go for the one that I wanted, but I went for the one that was available. That's my perception of American school. So when I came here for grad school, I was like, all right, let's get to the fucking. And that didn't happen. Because I was around all adults who were really serious about the craft. I went to an MFA program, it's a brilliant program, but they were all adults, and they made me feel like I was a dumb idiot who just got in through the diversity quota. And it was strange to be around all of these grown adults who were just that's not what school is about. First of all, I went to Queen's College. So it was a school where people travel to. They didn't really live on campus. Mm-hmm. And there were adults, people were married and had kids and all of that. And they were all cool in their own ways, but the sex wasn't happening. So I was this is
not what I signed up for.
Yes, I didn't pay for this college experience. I paid for a different. Where is the naked run that happens at the end of every school year? That didn't happen. I was
so weird. They're giving me books.
Yeah, they're read more books, and we'll come back to workshop. I'm damn, man.
This blows. But I do want to take a second. I'm sure you guys can probably predict this. If you don't know Sachin from our other episode, I'm going to give a little intro about him. But obviously he's hilarious because he is a comedian. He is a writer and a fool who believes in making jokes rather than doing something constructive. He wrote this bio. I'm not calling him a fool. He's calling him a fool. And he also believes that unicorns are real, but they're very, very fast, so no one can see them.
That's such a silly joke, right?
I know, but I love it. I love it. And I think I included it specifically because I was they need to know what they're getting into, because we have a serious subject, but we're going to have fun with it because you have two clowns here.
Yeah. I mean, what's the point of we took it very seriously, which is why we were late bloomers. If we didn't take it seriously, we'd be having sex when we were 13.
Right. We took nothing else in life seriously.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, think about where we are right now. We're on a podcast.
So listen, like I said, we're going to talk about virginity and first experiences. Me and Sachin are very open. So, if you guys can learn something from this, awesome. But I did ask our community beforehand to submit any questions or comments about their experiences, virgins and non-virgins alike. And so we're going to share those a little bit along the way. But I want to just start off. We got into it in the Guys Talk episode a little bit, just to, get everybody kind of familiar with us and where we're coming from. Would you mind sharing, just starting off with like what your experience was like losing your virginity, or I know you said on the Guys Talk episode that you were 25. Can you give
Mhm.
us a little bit of the context of like what
Okay.
happened?
So I remember, like, I think you saw my set the other day as well. There was a
Mhm.
part of it in there as well. Um, I was 25 and I was like, I don't think I'd taken anything seriously by that time. I was working in TV and
Mhm.
film, and I was writing for shows, and they were all soap operas, and I was like, this is like the idea of family and everything. That's what I was like grappling with at that time, intellectually at least.
Mhm.
But like on a day-to-day basis, I wasn't really a fan of the club scene or going out and having a good time. Like in India, sometimes it sometimes can be insular if you're growing up like middle class in India. It's like the boys hang out with the boys, the girls hang out with the girls, and there's no intersection apart from when it's like festivals. And you're not during festivals, you're not like really trying to do the
Right.
business, you know. So when I was 25, and I was like, I was at that point where you're always looking for someone, but like, you know how you inflate that concept of sex to be about so many different, it is about different things, but like the first few experiences are just basically about like, it's like riding a bicycle, like you're learning how to ride,
Mhm.
or someone is learning how to ride you, but you're learning there, and like that's the stage. So when I was 25, I the circumstances around me losing my virginity were like kind of a little bit sad, because like I had a friend who like passed away in a freak accident. Like we was having a conversation Wednesday afternoon, Thursday night he passed away. Thursday morning I get a call, hey, this has happened, there's been an accident, can you just go and check? By a school friend who's like, for 10 years we hadn't spoken, and suddenly he gives me a call and he goes, hey man, something's happened, can you go check? And I was like, I was a little pissed because this guy, we hadn't spoken in a long time. So I was like, you're asking me to run an errand for you right now? I mean, like, just go. He was like, he was also didn't want to tell me like explicitly. So because he didn't know how I would react, because he didn't know my equation with him.
Mhm.
So he just tells me, hey, can you please go and check at their place? There's something's like they're just looking. I mean, like the parents might be in a situation, can you just go and help him out or whatever? I go there and I come to know about his passing, and I'm shell shocked for that day. So the entire day, Thursday, I was like, I just didn't know what I was going through. And then Friday when I woke up, and I was like, so life can go away in an instant, and there are certain things that you need to like do, like you have to go and venture out and get those things for yourself. And I mean, I don't know, I mean, the whole concept of chasing and everything, chasing sex or chasing
Mhm.
anything in general, is just that they just go let it come to you. But at that time I was just like, this is the need of the hour, I'm not going to wait for this to happen, because what happens if I'm on a car on Friday afternoon and this happens again
Mhm.
to me and I'm gone? So I'm like, I need to take care of this now. So I've been on a few dates with someone, and I was like, can can I ask them if like we can do something like this or whatever, go out on a date, and you know how you do. uh, but like it was different because I was living with my parents, and you can't really tell your parents like, hey, can you go out for like 3 hours and I want to have sex, can you just do that for me? So I had to like, you have to basically, especially in India, if you're growing up middle class, you need to find someone who has like a house,
Mhm.
an apartment where the parents might be gone, or they have like another apartment in some other suburb.
Right.
So you have to go there and you have to figure out a timing. You have to figure out a way to make sure that no one's watching and whatnot, because that also happens. Like there are certain cases, because even like sex work in India, that's a whole other conversation. But like sex work in India is like, it's taboo, and people don't want to give apartments on rent to sex workers even. So if they come to know that any sort of like these activities are happening where
Mhm.
just the kids are going in just to hook up and whatnot, the apartment building gets together and they're like, we can't let this happen and whatnot.
Right.
So my friend had an apartment in another suburb, and he was like, I can let you go there, but you have to be careful. So when I finally I don't want to say convinced, because that gives the idea that I try to coerce or whatever.
Mhm.
It was just like she was also into it, but she was also like just the concept of saying that, hey, would you travel 2 hours with me so that we can have sex in a stranger's apartment?
It's like a little sketch.
I know, right? To say that to a woman, and you go, I don't want to say something like that, but like, well, she was brave and she was like, yeah, of course, we can go wherever. And we went there, and like we had to sneak into the apartment for which we had the keys, because I was the guy's friend, and the people in the building didn't really know that I was going to go there and whatnot. So I had to sneak into that apartment. So that was the whole situation surrounding it. Just me going to that apartment, trying to find an afternoon where we can both be free, and then telling them that it's going to be like 2 hours away. So if you want to come with me, I mean, whatever the case is, because sometimes what happens is people just uh, give up midway. It's like, I don't want it that bad.
Yeah.
Right. If you have access to something here, then we can go. But otherwise, I'm not really coming all the way there. I don't know I don't know you. I mean, like, I've known you, I've seen you for like 3 dates, but that doesn't mean I'm going to travel with you to another place altogether.
Right.
So that was the situation at that time. So there was grief also. There was the stress of like life in general. So the sex aspect of it just felt like another experience that I was like checking off my bucket list, so to speak, at that time. And at 25, you really don't know, like, you really don't want to be thinking about all of these things when you're trying to do a thing that most people do normally. So that was like a little bittersweet for me, just to get over that whole virginity. There were no bells and whistles. I didn't like set up a candle and music and whatnot, because just like, let's fucking go. So it was that.
Right.
So that's what it was. I don't know.
And I can definitely relate, which is why I was like really excited to get you on this. That I can't speak for everyone that like loses their virginity as a late bloomer, but I think there was like years and years of like expectations of like what's the right way to do it, whatever. And then for me, it was very similar, that it was like it wasn't the idea. It was like very much reactionary.
Right.
So I should have put this at the beginning, like a little bit of a trigger warning for like medical trauma. But like, as this podcast is called The 30-Year-Old Virgin, so I was like 30 years, had never had sex, had never even seen a pee-pee. Like people would be surprised, in America, I don't know if it's like this in India, but you say virgin, but like they done had dicks like everywhere except in their vagina,
Yeah.
No, I was like
the loophole. Yes.
Yeah, I like totally had never had any kind of like intimate anything. Hadn't even dated, because I grew up heavy and was very insecure. And so at 30 years old, I had gastric surgery, and so I lost a lot of weight. And part of the reasoning was like I felt like there was like a life that I wasn't leading, because I had all these like ideas about my weight. So I lost 70 pounds, and it wasn't necessarily that I was like confident or anything, but I was like, okay, now like go pursue the things that you've been putting off because of these insecurities. So I was like, I never dated because I was insecure, because I was like, people don't like fat people.
Yeah.
And so I started dating, and I was like, if I'm going to start dating, like sex is going to come up.
Right.
I knew that I didn't really have to be in love. I just wanted it to kind of happen naturally, but I was like, I don't know what that means yet. So let me go get, go to the gyno, get birth control just in case. Cause like, ain't nobody trying to have babies. I just lost all this weight. You kidding me?
Right.
And so I went to the gynecologist, and I had avoided the gynecologist for like a very long time because I had a bad experience when I was younger that I didn't really know how to, I didn't really know how to process, because I didn't understand why it was a bad experience.
Right. If I may ask, was it a male gynecologist or
a female, surprisingly?
Okay.
A young female too, which is why I feel like this is heinous and we should call Mariska Hargitay on her. But I found out when I went at 30 years old that the reason that like it was such a horrible experience the first time is because that doctor actually broke my hymen without telling me that she was going to do that.
Oh wow, really?
But yeah, apparently like there's a pap smear is like normal, that they like do it in like every annual checkup.
Yeah.
And but if you're a virgin, you're not supposed to get it because they'll literally break it.
Okay.
And she just like kind of made that decision on her own, knowing that I was a virgin, didn't
Right.
warn me anything. And so it was like obviously really like painful and uncomfortable.
Right.
And so she told me, like, she didn't realize that I didn't know. And so it kind of like fell out like unintentionally, and
Right.
like it just like threw me. Like I was like having a panic attack on the bus on the way home. And I feel like that kind of similar to like what happened with your friend, like it just kind of complicated like an
Yeah.
already complicated relationship
right.
with sex and virginity.
Right.
Feeling like, okay, but I'm like not a virgin anymore, but I am.
Yeah,
Like
right.
I felt like she like robbed me of like part of that experience.
Yeah.
You know?
I know.
And so then I started dating because I was like, I don't know what else to do.
I'm not a virgin anymore.
I was like, I don't
technically.
really, I was like, I don't really know how to process this, but I started dating.
And that was the first time that you had started dating. Before that, you had never dated.
I had gone on like first dates, like a handful of first dates,
Right.
but like it never really went anywhere just because like in my mind I was like, nobody likes me. Like you can't really date under that, thinking. It just
Yeah.
wasn't really like very self-sabotaging.
I had like really specific notions about who I'm going to be dating. So I had like, this should happen, that should happen, this should happen. And then that checklist, you'll never have someone who meets that checklist.
Right.
Like I used to have this, I was like, I need someone who reads a lot of books and is interested in world culture or whatever. And I think that was just like, I can't have sex with someone who I don't like. Like if the conversations before are not fun, then it doesn't make sense for me to like get to that point even. So for me, it was like I have this checklist where these things have to be met, and if this is not met, then I'm not going to try to pursue them and whatnot.
Right.
And I think I might have robbed myself of experiences with different people because everyone's like interesting in their own way, and you need to be able to be open enough to explore explore that idea of just like being with someone for a little bit.
Right.
And just to see what it is. So I mean, like maybe it was my insecurities also that I was projecting, that maybe I'm not good enough, and like as I wasn't working, I wasn't I mean, like even when I started working, it wasn't like I was making millions. I was like working in TV, but that doesn't make millions in the beginning, and I'm yet to see my millions, but but still, it was just like I have had those inhibitions. Did you have like particular ideas of who you wanted to date and who you?
To be honest, I didn't, because so much of my life I thought I kind of had to take whatever was coming to me. And then even after, I think what they don't tell you about when you lose weight, and especially losing weight quickly because of like the surgery, is that I still very much saw myself as like overweight, and like those thoughts were still there.
Right.
But now I was getting a lot more interest from people.
Yeah.
And I think I was more open to like there were people before that were interested in me, and I kind of like disregarded it because in my mind I'm like, you're crazy, I'm fat. Like so I actually just started dating like anything and everyone, like, and
free for all.
Yeah, like literally anyone that gave me the time of day. Yeah. But I did end up meeting one person that like I really did like and seemed to like check a bunch of boxes that I didn't really go into it with, but I was like, oh, this like makes a lot of sense. And so I was like kind of bracing myself for like, okay, it's gonna happen soon. And then this piece of shit started to like ghost, fade out after like we'd been like dating, kind of like we weren't anything serious, but it was like there was a bit of regularity, and I was like kind of already thinking like we'd had serious conversations. So I was like, oh, okay, like I thought we were going somewhere, but he just kind of like tried to like ghost, and he like tried to ghost, kind of reemerge because we run in similar circles, so he wanted to like be okay. And I was just like, nah, like that's not gonna fly for me. Cut him off, and then literally had been in this, like I was literally like dating like 3-4 people at a time always.
Nice.
And so, because like I told you, it was like
I'm appreciative
ugly
of someone
people,
who can, like,
people that I would not get along. It was like anyone, like literally anyone that would ask me out would get a date.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, but so because of that, because I was like butthurt, I had never had a heartbreak like that before.
Right.
I ended up just having sex with like some random guy that on my second date, like a few drinks in, and so I was
You're
like,
fuck it, just let me just rip the band-aid.
just
Like,
like,
yeah.
all right, well, like I was
Like-
in a bad place to even make that decision.
Uh-huh.
Like similar to what
Right.
you said of like there was so many other things going on that
I know,
it
right?
became less about the virginity and
Yeah.
more just like I'm dealing with a lot of other shit. Let's just get it over with.
Yeah, I know. It's just like I think that's the thing that we don't like take into consideration. Like we go for a long time saying that I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. This is how it's going to be, and I'll find one and I'll be done with whatever this is. I just don't want to keep seeing people and whatnot.
Yeah.
And like I keep having the same conversation because like that's what the first 2 days are. Oh, where are you from? What
Oh
are
my
your
God.
interests? What is your favorite book? What is your favorite song? What is your favorite color? And I'm like, I had that question like when I came here and I started dating here in the US. For a year or something, I was like regularly hooking up with someone. And then once I actually started dating here, and after the first 6 or 7 people I started chatting with, and then they would ask me that question. They would be like, "Hey, what do you like doing? What is this? What is that?" When you get to that questionnaire that you have to fill, it just gets so annoying that
Yeah.
you're just like, "Let's just get this over with." What do you want? What do you have? What are your expectations?
Yeah.
Do you want to do like you want to have fun, or do you want to just like get into some serious or whatnot? And you just like, let's get done with these formalities. I assume that's where you were at as well. You were
That's
just like,
literally what was going through my head because I was going out with this guy. I had been talking to him for a while and it was
Right.
like, there's nothing wrong with him. I
Uh-huh.
just wasn't really that into him.
Right.
And just kept like dating people that I wasn't really into.
right.
And so I was literally sitting on this date, having the same conversations and not feeling that chemistry like I had with the other guy. And I was like, I don't want to do this again. Like, I don't want to like, I was like, I don't want to put myself out there. First of all, I was like, very like, I'm over this shit.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to put myself out there. I don't want to be talking to all these freaking random people and having these, preliminary bullshit questions.
Uh-huh.
I was like, I ran to the bathroom and called the other guy, and he was just like, "Oh, I'm kind of busy right now," and I'm just like, well, you know what? Then it's gonna be this one. Because my thinking going to the bathroom was like, I'm gonna ditch this date and just have sex with him, and I'll deal with the consequences later.
Oh, really?
But he was like busy, and I was like, well, fuck it. Then you know what? You just been promoted. Like,
did you just like walk out and like, you know what? As soon as I walk out of the door, the first guy I find attractive, he's going home with me.
It was more or less of like, you know what? You're on the date now, so it's your turn. Yeah, and it was awful, but yeah, so that's I was like, I just feel like let's tell some stories so that, we got some stories from the audience as well, so I'll read those as well. I think it's important to share with people that like whatever you're waiting for and thinking it's gonna be in planning, like life is gonna life.
Let me just tell you that it's not going to be that. And if it is, like, great, but you're not the rule, you're the exception.
Yes.
I just like I have to make it clear. It's like it's not the rule. Like I was speaking to someone, and this is going to be very dark, but I was speaking to someone about like having kids and whatnot, and I was like, getting a life into this world is the most cruel thing you can do. And they were like, what the hell are you saying? How can you say that? And I was like, it's so cruel to subject someone to life. And they were like, no, life is beautiful. Life is great. I'm like, listen, 90% of the people struggle to make ends meet in this world. They're not happy. There's only fleeting moments of happiness followed by like a fucking dumpster truck full of shit and sadness and pain. So if you're saying that life is beautiful, 9 out of 10 people disagree with you. That one person who agrees with you, if there's only one person who agrees with something, that's not the rule, that's the exception.
Yeah.
So if you're saying that life is beautiful, for who? One person?
Yeah. Life can be beautiful.
Can be in moments. But like losing your virginity, it's a great, I mean, like that's the thing. That's that one fleeting moment of happiness, actually. Like if you look at just having sex for the first time, that's that moment of happiness.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why, like, even when people speak about having sex, even if it's couples who have been seeing each other on the regular, they just go, I got laid last night. I feel lucky. That's what you say. I got lucky last night, right? That's what people say, even though they didn't have sex all the time. But they go, yeah, it was just one of those moods. But sex is one of those things that makes you happy. That's that fleeting moment of happiness.
Right.
Get laid now. I'm kidding.
Sachin is on a crusade. Like, everybody just do it. But I will say that I feel like even when I was a virgin, people would talk about like I feel like when I'd mention to people that I was a virgin and they'd like lost their virginity earlier, I feel like most people have the same reaction where you see their eyes kind of like roll, like you see them kind of detaching from the moment and they're just like, hold on to it forever. Like you see them going through their trauma as they speak. So I was like, I like to believe that we're not the only ones. Like no one or very few people have like a perfect experience.
I don't know, and no one's ever said that. Like no one's ever said, "Oh, my first time, amazing."
Yeah, like we were in love and it was great and it was magical. Like who? No one. Only on TV.
Yeah, and like even on TV, they don't show the people like actually losing their virginity.
Yeah,
They just fade to black. So
yeah.
that's
So in the fade to black is actually horrible.
yeah, they're just like in 10 seconds they fade to white again, and then they're just like, oh, that was sex, huh?
Yeah. We talked about it a little bit on the other episode about how like when you don't know what to do and you're literally like studying.
Where do I go? You just go, where do I go? And it's like you're supposed to find it. And like there are all these positions that you want to try first. And you're gonna be like, oh, this is how it should be. That's how, and like for dudes especially, I feel for the guys because women can like this, like I don't know how female sexuality works. But like for men, everything can happen instantly. Like there can be times when you're just excited to be there, and like it happens.
Like boom,
it's done, and just like, and it's embarrassing because like the guys go, like sometimes women will go, you can't even think about this, you can't control yourself and whatnot. And in the beginning, you can't. No, you don't know how to do that. Like in the beginning, you're just like, I'm trying to figure out how long can I last. That's the thing. I think this is what most men do. It's like trying to maintain an erection while trying to go the distance, while making sure that she's okay, I mean like the considerate people at least, while making sure that she also has a good time and she comes too. And in some cases, if you're like in the initial stages when you're young, because virginities happen young or even in middle age, like 24, 25 and whatnot, at that time also you don't really know how to communicate once you're naked.
Or in general, a lot of people don't know how to communicate in their big age.
Yeah, we'll not go there. But like in general, once you're naked, you're like, all right, let's just get this over with. And you feel like, oh, it's just like riding a bike. It's just like, I mean, you're a human and you know how to do this, but like it takes time to learn.
Yeah.
And you have to practice on like multiple people. And like you can't be a sexual expert in the beginning.
Yeah. And I feel for you guys because I mean, I don't know, maybe just in my experience, I literally tell the guys like, listen, I don't know what I'm doing, so you got to be the captain of this ship. Like, you need me to flip, I'll flip. You tell me what to do. But I would think there's a certain level of like, you know, expectation that the man is kind of the lead, and if you don't know how to do anything,
yeah, if you don't know how to like. Sometimes you need, like in the beginning at least, you need guidance. Yeah. Like I didn't need any. I'm kidding.
You're like, I knew how to do everything.
I knew everything, but it's like how to control like the whole thing. Like how to like, because your body tenses up. And they're like, how do I relax all other parts of my body while making sure the tension is only there? And then how to like, sometimes the rhythm is off. So do you have to control that? So it's like, how do you sail when you've never been on a boat? Right? For men especially. How do you do it? Like, you can't learn that. And for women, at least like multiple orgasms wise, it's good. But for men, the first time is not going to be like, the first round at least is not going to be too long.
Yeah.
In the beginning. I mean, like afterwards you learn how to control yourself. But sometimes you don't. And like in your case, like you said, you lost your virginity after a couple of drinks. If the guy's also had a couple of drinks, he's like, all right, I'm relaxed now completely.
That shit was like instant. I was like, no offense to him. That shit was like instant. I was like, that's it. That's it. I literally left that experience like, you know, if I never have sex again, I'm kind of okay with that. I don't think this is for me. Like, I was like, thank God the second person was like better. But then it was like awkward because I feel like the second time was like losing my virginity again. Because again, I did not know anything. The first guy was like 1, 2, 3. He was done. He was ready to roll. He was like, pff. So then with the second guy, first of all, like TMI, but the first guy didn't use a condom. So the second guy.
Wait, really? You were okay with it?
I was a couple drinks in. I'm not gonna, and I don't know, like, you know, I was like, I don't know how this is supposed to go. So I was just kind of like following along.
Contraception, you don't
Yeah,
know.
no, I sound so stupid, but like, I don't, it's like if you're gonna sit down and cook and you've never cooked before, and like I know it conceptually, but I don't know, like, oh, I should prep the vegetables this way or something, whatever, you know.
Yeah, prep the vegetables, right?
Like,
Yeah, you have to.
But no. So with the second guy, he pulled out a condom, and I'm like looking like, what the fuck is this alien thing? Like I've never seen one. You know what I mean? Like I came into it knowing jack shit. So I'm just like, what the fuck is that alien thing he's putting? Oh, is that what a condom is? Oh, like, I went to Catholic school, okay?
Oh, wow,
like
really?
I don't know anything.
Okay. Yeah, they do a good job of making sure that there's babies in the world.
Yes.
But-
Just teach them nothing at all.
Oh my god! I mean, like Wait, you went to Catholic school here in the US, right?
Yes.
You didn't have that kind of like. It wasn't like.
We learned about like STDs, but we never like saw a condom. I know in some like public school and stuff, they'll like show you a condom, show you like the proper application. They don't. They just teach you STDs, and they're like, don't touch anybody.
But you hadn't seen any
So-
pornography by that time.
No. When I tell you, Sachin, I did not know a fucking thing. First of all, my friends had like tried to show me porn because they're like, you should understand something, and I
Yeah.
was like, this shit looks terrifying. Like this shit looks like whatever they picked. I was like
Yeah.
senior level like experience. Like it was just too much.
Oh really?
Like,
Yeah, that must have been hardcore. But it's
Yeah.
also like I think porn stars also in many cases the professionals don't, because they are tested so much and everything.
Mhm.
In many of the scenes they don't really use condoms. This is too much information.
Mhm.
I like study that aspect. But like they said that it's actually unhealthy for many porn stars to use a lot of condoms.
Mm.
So they avoid. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a scientist or whatever, but that's what I had read a few years ago, that they don't use too many condoms and everything because they're already regularly tested. If you're not tested, then you can't be
You
on
can't
set.
even
You can't work.
Yeah.
So they are regularly tested, and it could lead to certain problems because of using too many condoms. Because then the whole issue with what bacteria are present and whatnot, that causes problems, which is why many of the scenes that you see, they don't really use condoms. So everyone thinks that's the norm,
Yeah.
but that's the norm for people who are having sex with multiple people on a set after they're being tested
Mhm.
and everything. So it doesn't matter, and many of them are on birth control and whatnot.
Yeah. So get tested and use condoms. That's the one
Yeah.
good thing. It did put the fear of God in me that I'd be getting tested like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
nobody's business, because I'm like, you're not gonna catch. Imagine waiting all this time and then you catch something. Like, there's nothing wrong with, I'm not trying to shame anybody, but I was like,
No.
nah, you're not gonna catch me slipping. Like, nah. But I do want to get to some of the questions that
Yeah.
people submitted. So we had like non-virgins and virgins asking questions.
Mhm.
And so the virgins wanted to know, do you ever regret losing your virginity? I think that's a fear that people have, that they're gonna like regret the way that it happened, or if they
Mhm.
did it or whatever. So how do you feel about that?
I don't at all. No, I've never felt like I did something wrong. And like I think that's the thing that comes with religious guilt, I suppose. Where you're like, when you do something like that, it's always forbidden. It's always something that's told, like you're told not to pursue that. You're told not to do that unless it's for procreation, especially in Catholicism and Christianity and many of the more conservative religions. So for you to just enjoy that as a physical act, it takes time to get over it. But by the time I was 25, I was like educated in these things.
Mhm.
Like I had gone out of my way to read about these things, read about what guilt is, read about what my relationship can be with another person sexually and whatnot. So I had done all of those explorations already intellectually. Everything was done. Like I was ready to go, but I just kept delaying because I was also like, as much as I was influenced by sex experts, I was also influenced by Disney. So I go, all right, I need Princess Jasmine, and none of the others would do.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any guilt at that time. Did you have any guilt at that time?
I kind of regret that I'm a very rational person,
Mhm.
or try to be, and I felt like for something that I had saved for so long, I lost it in a kind of an irrational way.
Mhm.
But I do also think that, like, I'm glad that I was already at an age where I could kind of make sense of things.
Right.
Because like stuff happens to you in your life and like sometimes you don't know how to process it. But I think because I was already 31, I had already gone through a lot of stuff. I was like really committed to like committed and like educated in like healing and growing and like just personal development. I kind of feel like it happened the way it had to happen because I think what I found out is that like one, I'm very sex positive. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with like one night stands or like I don't find anything wrong with in any of that. I don't have to be in love with anyone. And I kind of knew that. I felt like the idea of losing your virginity just got like so conflated with like everybody else's opinions and because I didn't know enough about it, right? And then the fact that it happened like not the way I pictured it with someone that wasn't meaningful for me, it kind of like cleared that up for me that like I didn't like after it happened, I wasn't like devastated. Oh my God. I was just like, oh, all right, what are you gonna do? You know?
Yeah.
And I also think it was better that I didn't do it with someone that I like really cared about.
Yeah.
Because I think that would have confused my relationship with sex.
I know.
And now I say that with like, okay, I have not been in love yet, or, you know, like I haven't actually had sex with someone that I have a very serious relationship with. So I'm sure there's going to be like a whole different dimension when that happens. But for now, like it just made it very clear to me, like this was never that big a deal. Like the actual sex was never that big of a deal for me. And so now I feel like I can keep it like apart and like work on that understanding of myself without all the extra baggage of like a relationship or love or stuff, which is still something that I don't know about and I'm learning about separately.
I know, right. And I also feel like if it had happened the way you had planned for it to happen, maybe it would have reinforced some of the negative ideas that you had about sex. And it would have been like, yeah, this is how the way it is. This is how it's supposed to go. Because I mean, like it's always conflated with so many other things. It is complex in so many different ways. But to add it, like to add the morality and virtue angle to it is so much of a stretch that it just like again, the whole incel culture or whatever that is. I mean, it's not a culture, but it's people are forced into that culture. But the whole idea that like even now when you're looking at everything that's associated with men and women and their dynamics, and I mean like all other genders and the dynamics as well, there's so much hate between like hetero genders when you think about it. When you look at all the information that comes to you from all of the bro podcasters who just like talking about men should behave like this, women should behave like that. It's not the way it is at all. Like sex is such a major part of that conversation. People go, oh, what's your body count? Someone with a body count is not nice, not this, not that. What are you talking about? Like, how do you get better at satisfying a partner if you don't go and experience those things for yourself? How do you do that? How do you maintain better relationships? Like, I think Esther Perel,
Love her.
Yeah, she was speaking about female sexuality, and she was saying that female sexuality is very narcissistic. So narcissistic, and it's not in a negative sense, but in the sense that like female sexuality, the female gaze, and all of these things, many men are trained to believe that whatever we see in like the Marvel movies and whatever we see in the movies, that's what masculinity is, and that's what women are attracted to. But that's not the case at all. I've had like comments going from people saying that, hey, your eyebrows look nice, and I'm like, what the hell are you even talking about? I don't even know that people are noticing these things. But it's all different things. Like women are like from the traditional male gaze perspective, you look at women in a certain way. But when you add things like sexuality and everything to it, it's a totally different thing. It's very complex, and it's leading to a lot of problems right now. So if you take away the weight around sex, it can loosen up all our interactions. Even we can like be civil and cordial to each other, and like instead of fighting in the comment section, we could just have like actual interactions with people and lead to more fulfilling relationships, no matter what that relationship is. It could be friendship, it could be sexual partners, it could be just hooking up, It could be multiple partners. All of these things, all of these things are involved. And just because there's some taboo associated with having sex,
Mm-hmm.
it just kind of explodes into all of these other things. And it's just fighting. I don't care about that fighting. I care about having sex. That's more fun.
Right.
Right.
Do you feel like your relationship with sex has changed over time?
It has. Like in the beginning, you're just like checking off boxes. You're like, I haven't done this, I want to try this. I haven't done that, I want to try that. Different body types. You want to try people who you're attracted to, people you're not attracted to, people who you would go for, people you wouldn't go for. Whoever comes to, I mean, like whoever hits on you, whoever you hit on, all of these things. First, you just go through that laundry list of items that you want to be like, I want to do it with this person, that person, try different styles, positions, whatever it is. And then after a certain point, you take a step back and see why. Take a step back and see the why.
Mhm.
In the beginning, it's just how and what I want to do. And then suddenly you take a step back and see, like, why do I need it? And how much do I need it? And am I using this as a distraction from other things? Should I
Mhm.
be focusing on other things that are more important, like making a living?
Mhm.
Is that more important, or just chasing pussy is more important? So you kind of get into that space where you want to see if you can find a balance, because otherwise you just use it as a distraction. You're like, oh, I
Right.
pursued some. That's the thing. Sex can sometimes just be a pursuit of a certain thing. So if you're just looking to have sex that night, you can't just, like, you can either hire sex workers, or you can build something with someone for that evening or whatever, and that takes time and investment, which could be invested into other things.
Mhm.
Right. So all of these complexities, they suddenly come to the fore after you've had
Right.
enough of it. Then you go, all right, now what am I looking for, and what do I need?
Mhm.
Am I doing this just to have someone around me, and I don't know how to have a relationship with someone, so I'm just using sex for that? So
Right.
you see what your purpose with, like, what purpose sex serves in your life as well. So that's, I think, more contemplation after you've had enough of it, where you just go, all right, now I don't need it. I want it. I don't need it particularly. And how you're going to include that in your life. That's what you see. I mean, I think that's how it's changed.
Yeah.
It's become more like, I mean, it can be carnal, but you also kind of want to see intellectually how it is.
Mhm.
And I think that's what, like, not to be like a biologist or whatever, but it's just, I think that's what separates us from other animals. Like, we
Mhm.
just go, we can look at sex in different ways. It doesn't necessarily have to be for procreation.
Right. And I think we're at an advantage too, being late bloomers,
Mm-hmm.
that like I feel like I've seen people have unhealthy relationships with sex
Right.
throughout my life.
Yeah.
And now because I'm like, I think because we're doing it older, wiser, a little more aware of ourselves,
Right.
and how, like, why we do things, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
we can catch ourselves and kind of prevent that from happening. Because I
Yeah.
know, like, for as much as I say that I'm like sex positive and it doesn't mean that much to me,
Mm-hmm.
I did find at one point where, like, if I had like a bad situation where, but like, you know, when people are like emotional and they're like, I'm gonna go have a drink, and now they've drank too much, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Right.
I found sex was starting to become that, where like I had like, oh, I ran into an ex that, like, you know, it triggered something, and then all of a sudden I start like blast, like it's literally like a freaking text message blast to like every man that has ever shown interest, had sex with me, to
Yeah.
see like who's gonna take it.
Yeah.
And then, like, okay, I had a couple drinks that night, and that's why, thankfully,
Mhm.
no one responded in a timely
Oh, really?
fashion. Yeah, I was like, but like, the next day, I'm like, why did we do that? Like,
Yeah.
you know, why are you allowing your emotions to get mixed into like your relationship with sex? Like,
Right.
you weren't trying to have sex. You were trying to find validation. In
Yeah.
that moment, you needed some kind of validation that like
Right.
you were desirable or whatever,
Uh-huh.
or like, oh, I have other options. Fuck that guy.
Yeah.
And so I think we're really lucky that we can have that and
Yeah.
not like make 100,000 mistakes
I
for
know.
years and
Yeah.
then be like, oh, actually, you know what? Like,
I know. Yeah, there's we have an objectivity to it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because we've gotten to that point really late. I think, I don't know if it happened to you, but like in many late bloomers cases, it probably happens where once you start having sex at that point, you try to get through the whole thing. Like that just becomes an obsession for you
Mm-hmm.
for like whatever time period you want to take. And for women, I guess it's easier because like the options are available. For dudes, it's like you just go on that hunt. But like, okay, now I'm gonna go on this date. I'm gonna go on that date. I'm gonna be on this app, that app. I was on all the apps.
Mm-hmm.
So you just find like send messages to everyone that you can think of, hit on everyone that you can think of, and whenever it happens, you go clear your schedule. I'm gonna go get. Yeah, that's what. And then you get through the whole thing in a short period, and then you go, all right. I think now I can like relax.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to prove any. I think that's the thing. Like when I first started having sex regularly, I was like, it was just like to prove a point to someone, like some imaginary, like anyone who's like ever been like, hey, you're a virgin, you've never had sex, whatever, right? You just do it to prove a point to someone, and then suddenly you can take a step back.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives us that objectivity that I don't think many people who've been cooler than us have had.
Right. It's like, you guys are cooler, but like we're wiser.
I know, right? I'm wiser. I'm gonna keep, and like that's the issue. Like whenever you say, "Oh, I'm wiser," and they go, "Yeah, I'm gonna go have sex," and you can be wise alone. That's I don't have any comeback for that.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I think it definitely has its advantages, and I think for any late bloomers who are like overstressing it, we said it on the other episode, like almost like don't put too much weight on it.
Yeah,
it'll happen when it has to happen, and because you're full grown, I think you're more equipped to deal with whatever the aftermath is.
I think you can, like, even while you're in the process, like when it's happening, I think you will always be objective, and you can put yourself first. Like, be selfish in these spaces, and like put yourself first and see that you're being taken care of first. You don't want to have that as a scarring experience, that like because I mean, like, it's beautiful to have sex is great, and just because you've had one bad experience in the like, first of all, you held yourself back for so many years, and the first time you have sex, it's a bad experience, so you'll hold yourself back again. That's not a good thing. So I guess with the late bloomer situation, you can gain an objectivity that other people didn't have because they had sex at 16 and they didn't know what they were just flailing bodies. So that's better. Yeah.
Well, that is all the time we have, but I want to thank you, Sachin, so much because, I mean, like I said, I think it's great to be able to have like a male late bloomer here so that we cover all the ground, because it's just not things that people are totally comfortable talking about. And like, obviously, you know, it's something people are struggling with by themselves or with a small limited group of friends, or talking about with people who don't understand because they're not late bloomers, and so they don't really understand all the nuances. So I really appreciate you sharing your story, and you're always hilarious and insightful. So if you did not check out our other episode of The Guys Talk, Sachin is on there with another guest of ours, and we're talking about their opinions on dating. So make sure to check it out as well. If you want to follow Sachin and see what he's up to, he is on all the social media as am such an ass, because he's such an ass.
I'm an ass of myself everywhere.
Yes, he is.
Don't expect insight in most places.
But he's really funny and ragingly inappropriate, so definitely fits with the theme of our whole podcast. But make sure you follow him and support. And don't forget to check back in next week for another episode of the 30-Year-Old Virgin Podcast.